Welcome to Business Prowess with Raphael and Dr. Andrea. Our show will bring you the best insights, ideas, and inspiration from successful entrepreneurs and CEOs in the business world. Don't miss out on the opportunity to learn from the best and stay ahead of the game. Sifu Raphael is the founder of 5 unique shows. He's a fitness professional, solutions expert, executive coach, and head instructor at Max Martial Arts and Fitness in New York. Dr. Andrea Adams Miller is an award-winning international keynote speaker, best-selling author, and CEO of the Red Carpet Connection Publicity, Publishing, and Talent Agency, and CEO of IgniteYourRelationship.com. Known as the Dream Maker, she makes visionaries' dreams come true, bigger than they ever dare to desire.
Well, good morning, everybody. Dr. Andrea, it is always a pleasure to see you. And Kevin, thank you for joining us.
Well, good morning to you as well. Good morning, Kevin. Can you hear us all right?
Yes, I can.
Good. All right. We are talking about living a big life. I would like to start with saying that you make anything you want out of your life. And is it big or is it small? For me, my life is bigger than me. Every day I have an opportunity to make it beautiful, to make it great, and to connect with amazing people. So thank you guys for being here today and helping me make my life bigger.
Yeah. Glad to be here. Thank you.
So, Kevin, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you're living a big life?
Oh, how I'm living a big life. Well, partly I'm 74 years old, so life continues to get big and big and bigger just because of the quantity of the years, I think. And after 50 years in a educational profession, being a teacher, principal, retiring about 4 years ago, I decided to pursue a dream of writing a book. And I wrote my book, 2 Floors Above Grief. And through that book writing and other connections, that's how I met Sifu Raphael and had the good fortune to be on some of his programs. And I'm working on, and I've gotten into with the title of the book, 2 Floors Above Grief, I've gotten into a little bit of I call it the grief world, and have been able to connect with other people who are providing consult in terms of grief. My experience with grief happens to come from my upbringing in a funeral home. And working in social services as an educator and a teacher, and just having the ability to communicate and talk, because I know some of the people in the grief world are counselors. I'm a counselor because of age, because of my own experience, and I'd like to share experiences with people. So that's what I've been doing, and I'm now identifying myself through social networking as the grief navigator. So that is what's making my world whole, my world big. I think that's the word you used, Andrea. So that's what's making my world big at this moment.
Well, certainly there's a lot to unpack there and things to rope around. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about that.
Great.
Sifu, you started to say something.
Yeah, I was going to say hi, Lisa. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, thank you for having me. Apologies for my lateness. My toddler needed a little extra loving before I transitioned.
That's awesome that you were with your toddler, because we're talking about living a big life and having an impact on a child is huge. I think that they see you as the most important person in their life. So tell us a little bit about how you're living.
Ooh, oh my gosh. Well, you pretty much hit the nail on the head. I'd say that the biggest part of my life right now is being a parent in a way that I feel and believe will heal generations. I think that the biggest act of legacy on the planet is being able to do that, being able to heal the next generation or give to the next generation in a way that makes a difference. It causes ripple effects. And I thank, everything out there, the universe, God, the pie in the sky, that I found the work that I did before becoming a parent. Because if I didn't not only have a coach for as long as I have and go through the transformational work and do the therapy that I needed in order to be this type of person for my child, the imperfect mess that parenting is, I don't think that, well, first of all, I don't think I'd probably have a kid. I wouldn't be there. And I certainly wouldn't be able to provide the spaciousness that kids need in order to be their own person. So I could talk about parenting and coaching and the overlap between the two for eons, but I'm also up to some pretty big things in my business too. I launched what we call in coaching a level 3 coaching certification program, which is a mentor coaching program designed for coaches to get their master certified coaching credential, which is a very, very difficult thing to do for those who are credentialed. In fact, only 4% of coaches have their MCC. Usually those individuals are in their 50s, 60s, and 70s because it takes so many hours in order to get there. And my stand is that coaches reach that level of mastery long before they have their hours, that they get to that place of exquisite service and depth and impact way before they need the credential or want the credential, because the credential isn't the point. The point is the impact, and impact will oftentimes create the income that you want anyways.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When when I think about living a big life, Rafu, I combined Sifu and Raphael and got Rafu.
I like it. Let's call him Rafu. That's great.
Sifu. So when, for you, when you think about living a big life, where are you at with that so we can join the conversation with our guests?
It's funny. I was about to ask you that, but okay, I'll take it. So, every day, and Lisa, you spoke about impacting, or even I briefly spoke about impacting the young ones. I have the opportunity to work with 3.5-year-olds, all the way up to way older than everybody here on the panel. And for me is, how do I help them live their best life, their big life, to make it impactful so that they can make an impact? And I think for me, it starts to teach them that they're worth it. They have value, and don't ever let anyone dampen your light. Bright as you are, shine. And when anybody comes over and tries to cover that light, just move them out of the way and keep shining. So if we can make an impact for a young person, or I've even had people, the oldest client I ever had was 102. And the beautiful thing about them was that they were very inquisitive. So their life was not over. They saw a tomorrow. And when somebody, and I'm gonna bust your chops on this one, Kevin. When you told me you're old, I wanted to kick you in the head. You're not old, right? When you're old, when you pass,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Right now, you're a young man. So for me, it's always helping people understand that they bring tons of value. And if I can see somebody shining, it lights me up. It makes I like the drumming, by the way, just so you know, your microphone picks everything up. So when I see somebody light up, it brings my light even brighter. And my goal is to impact as many people in this world as I can. And there's people say, I want to impact 1 million people or 10 million people. I don't put a cap on it. I don't want to ever cap my reach. Because if I do that, if I say I only want to impact 1 million people, what happens when I get to 1 million? Do I quit? No, I am here forever. watch me. I will be bright as everywhere I go. And Dr. Andrea can tell you, I don't stop. And by the way, she doesn't stop either.
Well, I'll share as well, especially because I want to share. I got to dance with this man. We were at a gala at a party, and his ability to move is absolutely phenomenal. And it was funny because the more I watched him, what I realized is he's just doing all of his. I don't even know all of the different types of. I say karate because my dad said karate, and he went to karate classes when he was a kid. So I know there's probably over 80 different types of martial arts. But when I saw him dancing, after a while, I was like, I really just think he's actually doing all of the moves, but just doing it to the beat. It was so fun to be with him. And he does live a very, very big life. He raises his hand, he says yes, he moves, he takes action. It was just absolutely so much fun. Kevin and Lisa, if you ever have the chance to have a party, invite Sifu because you will love the life that he brings to it. For me, living a big life means I live multiple lives in one. And that means I love the theater. So I go to theater and I'm in theater. In fact, I love to speak. So I travel and speak all over the world. I'm actually giving up going to a banquet where I'm up for multiple awards, possibly. I was in 2 different shows last year for theater, but I am choosing instead because I'm a panelist on stage. And so I get to speak on stage at an event. So I'm going to an event instead. And so I like to be on the road. I like to travel. I love to be in theater. I love to show up here and do a lot of things. And I love to help other people shine as well. So I'm shining my own light, but shining the light on other people. So there's rarely anything I say no to. That's because I don't want to. I want to do it all, and I figure out a way to do it. So Lisa, when my kids were little, my kids grew up in the basement of the theater until they were old enough to be on stage themselves. And I took them with us. We decided that we had kids and we brought them into our life, so they went everywhere with us, and we taught them how to go to the theater and be in the audience at 3, and how to behave and listen and be quiet. We took them on the road. We cross country drove. And it's funny because my girls are between 25 and 32. And they now look at their lives and like, wow, look at all the things that I have done compared to my peers. And that's what I want other people to do, is to live a big life.
That's
So,
amazing.
yeah.
Wow, I love that, and I love that part of your legacy is being able to raise humans that are exposed to a lot of different things. I think that um, there's study upon study that holding a vision and a level of excellence and a standard for any person at any age allows that person to rise to that standard. So if you support and train young kids to be in the theater starting at 3 years old, they're going to be able to do it. They absolutely will rise to the occasion. I think we oftentimes undersell ourselves and what we're able to do because we don't have the confidence, the support, or the education to do that. So for you to be able to educate your kids like that, it's a beautiful story.
Yeah, thank you so much. Sifu, I was thinking about Kevin and with the grief. So grief is part of our lives. So when you talk about children and how to overcome and move through grief, what are some tips that you talk about to help them see positivity in something that's sad?
That's for you.
That's for me. That's what I thought. No, I think part of what the platform I incorporate and use with people, whether it's adults or children, is just grief isn't something to put inside. There's a place for it there, but I think the way to navigate it is to talk about it and to invite people to share their experiences. Also, though, I think one of the things you talked in reference to children, because certainly children experience grief and not always have the language to talk about it, but that's part of the pursuit we have, I think, is to just keep inviting those conversations. But also, I was talking to somebody earlier this week, but also respecting everybody's space, because in a grief situation, some people not, or maybe will not always want to talk at a particular time. So what we came up with the other day, and the discussion I had with some college friends, was just to let the people know that we're there for them, to let them know that when they're ready, we can be in their space. But if they're not ready to have us in their space, and this would go for children as well, if they're not ready to have us in their space to talk about it, then let them have that space. And I think there's a lot of intuition that goes on, and a lot of just listening that goes on with grief as well. So, but I'm going to switch. I like what you're talking about with theater. I too, part of what the story I tell in the book is that I lived in a Victorian house that had a ballroom in it that was built in the 1880s. And when my parents worked to convert that house, the third floor of it, the ballroom, they kept 2 stages in there that had been in the house. So when they brought me home from the hospital in 1950, my bassinet, my crib was next to the stage. I transitioned into a twin bed. And when I was about 8 years old is when my father decided to take the stage out to give us more room. But being next to a stage, playing on a stage, I'm going to perform this summer in a production of The Drowsy Chaperone. So it's just,
I love that show.
it's still very much a part of me. And I think that those roots come back to the funeral home where I was raised, but the particular setting in my own room and our family did have a lot of theater stuff going on too. So I have that in common with you, Andrea.
Oh, lovely.
You know, one of the things that you talked about, and I want to come back to the stage part, is that you talked about when somebody's going through grief. And you and I talked about this, Kevin, that a lot of times the worst thing you can say to somebody when they're going through grief is, I know how you feel. Because you don't know how they feel. It's personal. And so, for example, I think you and I discussed it, where instead of saying, I know how you feel, say, I know you're going through something and I'm here for you. If I have ears, I'm ready to listen to you. If you need a hug, maybe they don't even want a hug. They don't want to be touched. But if you need a hug, I'm here for one, right? And a lot of times we impose our will on people, even when they're in grief. And we need to stop that.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody moves differently. Right? My sister passed away not too long ago, and I didn't cry. But I love her. Right? Every day I pray for her children. I pray for her grandchildren. I pray for her soul. And I know she's with my brother because he passed when he was younger. And we have to give people space to grieve the way they grieve and say, hey, if you ever want to talk about it, I'm here. Right? And I just wanted to share that with everybody. And the other thing about stage is, your life is a stage, my friends. You decide what role you want to play. Those are my 2 cents. And I think smiling, and Dr. Andrea will agree to this, smiling is showing your heart through your face. It's showing your love through your face. And a lot of people, you may have love, you might have intentions, but without that smile, people don't know where you may be coming from. They may think that maybe you are angry at them or all these different things. So the other day, and I don't want to take it off topic, but just the other day, I work with autistic kids as well. This guy is 23 years old. He came in, he was livid. He was mad. He just wanted to beat something up. And I said, go ahead, hit the bags. But then he took a weapon and he started pointing it at me. And he started threatening me. And so what I said to him, I said, what did I do to you? I want to knock you down. I said, okay. I said, so you want to fight? I said, let's fight. And he was taken back. And so I got a weapon and he tried to hit me. And every time I would block him, he says he got angry. He goes, why do you block? I just want to hit you. And I said, because you're not allowed to hit. So I let him do that for a little bit, and he got angry and he couldn't hit me. And I was just running around and being goofy with him and just being light about it. And then I finally said, I'm going to let you be by yourself. I'm going to let you do what you want in the room. And I walked out of the room. I can still see him. I have a huge space. And then later on, he calmed down. And at one point, I said to him, because he called his mother, he's like, I want to go home. And then she goes, why? And he goes, because I'm tired. I just want to relax. I want my own space. And because he felt the structure was too hard for him. So he turned around and his mom said, okay, first you have to apologize to Sifu. So he comes over, he goes, Sifu, I'm sorry. I said, hey, you know what? I said, you're good. I said, I only take apologies if I get a hug. And so he gave me a hug. And I said, I love you, right? He goes, I know. And then, even when he left again, even though he didn't want to be there that day, he turned around, he goes, we're on for Tuesday, right? We're on for Tuesday.
Nice.
I said, yes, of course. And he goes through stages. And one of the things for me is, in order to me to live that big life, is I need to be able to help people when they're maybe in their darkest spots. So I just thought I'd share that with you guys.
That's a beautiful story to let him go through all of that and to dodge his hits. Block them, dodge them, play with them, whatever they're called in martial arts. Obviously, I've never done martial arts. Hi, Patrick Tuttle.
Hey, girl.
Yeah, I'm in Patrick Tuttle's phone as I think I'm the smiley girl or something like that. He's from the ranking store. I always call him the ranking factor. It's the ranking store. A super good friend of mine. Lisa, we've been talking about these stages and so forth, and I'd love to hear more about what comes up for you. Just the idea of the play between theater itself, the idea of stages of grief, the idea of the stages of how this young man went through from anger to being able to be calm, to whatever that might mean to you.
Yeah, and Sifu, I'm so sorry about your sister's passing.
Thank you.
Yeah, an act of grace for you to be able to talk about it and bring it within a story. So thank you for that. I always like to think that everything's connected. And what we're talking about in terms of grief brings to mind the stages of transformation, because I think grief is a method of transforming. If we allow ourselves to be in grief, I'm not a grief expert, but from what little I know about it, transformation and the work that I do with executives and entrepreneurs and coaches are very, very similar. And why I do the work that I do is to be the forklifts of society, is to be the person who lifts up the helper and healers who also need to process and to go through their own work. I think that grief is something we don't really allow ourselves in modern society, and certainly not in American society. It's a very complicated, painful, deep emotion. And in general, we're just bad at being able to process emotions. We suck at it as a general civilization, whereas other societies had rituals, and they had transition times, and they had periods of being able to experience the depth of our feelings and getting held by others, like what you did with the person in your story, Sifu. Being able to hold others in their pain is such a sacred process, and it's a deep part of transformation. We oftentimes, in the work that I do, I'll bring a client on who has a very let's just call it like a modern goal of, I want to, become CEO of the company, or I want to scale to 7 figures, or, I want to become a speaker. That's I would say, the goal line objective. But the soul line objective is something much deeper. It's usually when you hit resistance, you hit that dark period, you hit the feelings of failure and fear of being seen, or fear of fear of not being loved, not being valued, all those fears, that's actually where the transformation happens. That's where we need to be held in the experience and be able to learn how to trust ourselves to be with the feelings, with the fears, and then transmute it to something different, to, oh, this is my form of love, or my fear of failure is because I really care. Well, instead of holding on to fear of failure, what if you were to focus on caring? Or what if you were to focus on support or really loving what you do? It's a very different experience. But usually there's a period of time I work with my clients on that is dark. You have to go into the thing that you've been avoiding in order to come up to the other side of it. And it is not for the faint of heart. Mm-mm.
I love that, because when you think about life, some people, and I have it, right? I did this actually yesterday. Some people think that life is like the top line,
Mm.
but life is really like the second bottom line.
Yeah.
It's all over the place. And when you think about your life, it's a journey, isn't it?
Mm.
It would be horrible if our lives were Groundhog Day, because what good is that? But some people try as hard as they can to live that way. They go to work, they come home, they sit down, they have a beer, they watch TV, they fall asleep on the recliner, and then they repeat, and then rinse and repeat. And that's not living. That's somebody who died when they got that job. That's somebody who
Mm.
said, "Oh, this is all I have." Meanwhile, they have an opportunity to create a big life. A big life. I think we can create a bigger life with the more people we can touch. And I don't mean in a fresh way. I mean in just smiling to a stranger, smiling when you open even holding the door for somebody. You see somebody with packages in their hand, they're walking around, and you just, if you just sit back and you see how they open the door, that's not the right attitude to have. It's, let me be of help, of just to smile, to say hello to somebody. Those are the impacts that people don't realize, because we don't know what somebody's going through. And your smile, your act of kindness is huge. One of the things that I always especially teach the little ones, the 3, 5-year-olds, is, what have you done nice today? And they think, well, I ate my food. I'm like, okay, that's good. But what have you done for somebody else? Oh, I helped my mom clean. Oh, great. I said, are you going to do more of it? Yeah, I like helping mom. Okay, great. How about that? What do you do with that? Oh, yeah, I help them with the car or cleaning or whatever it is. So I'm always encouraging them to do something more than just for themselves.
And and what I love about the world is that we all have different opinions and ideas of how things work, and we're allowed to choose however those things are. And I have a different view of some of the things that have been proposed, and so I just want to share that other flip side.
Well, I like it.
Sifu, I used to believe that people who lived what I would call, and it's what I call boring life, um, were not living a big life. And I last year took a year off, and not an entire year, like 8 months, and lived my life like my husband. My husband owns his own, but now he is an entrepreneur, so he does get to choose what he wants to do. But he's very much you'll hear Sifu and I talking about people in different according to a code called bank. In fact, Sifu, will you put that up? So bank is the way that it's not only why people buy, which although it was originally created for that, but bank also shows how people operate in the world. So on their 4 different personality types, it's based on it's a personality science, personality assessment. And my husband is a blueprint. He has, he gets up at the same time every day, and then has the same drink and goes to the same place and does the same kind of work, although it's, a little different. It's, he owns rental properties, so it does change from property to property. But then he has, like, every Tuesday, he has his apartment association lunch. Every Friday, he has, a certain meal he eats. Every Sunday, we do that. It's the same. Like, there's hardly any change unless I throw things in the mix, because I like something different every day. Like, the only things I do routine are, like, this radio show is at a certain time, so I know I'm going to be here at that time. Otherwise, you would never know what I'm.
Oh, I think we lost her for a quick second. Now I'm at the edge of my seat. Come back, Dr. Andrea. So it's so interesting, and we lost you for a quick
I
second.
saw that. So
How
I
is
all
it-
of a sudden saw you all spin. As the leaves grow on the trees, my satellite is not operating as well. So we're going to have to figure out what to do. We have a new system that we got right before winter, and it worked great all winter. So I was saying I started looking at Tom's life and living Tom's life. And at first I hated it. I resisted it. I cried. I'm like, this is horrible. This is so boring. But after a while, I started appreciating things like we do live on a 53-acre farm, and how being here and watching the sunrise and the sunset and seeing things, there's a different appreciation I have for my home, for my husband, for my kids, for the routine of things that I hated and repelled. However, now to Tom's living his big life. He's happy. He's 100% happy. He gets to do his hobby full out. He has a pinball and video game business, so that's his hobby that he actually makes money from, and he gets to fly his plane. That I'm using him as an example of someone who lives a very routine life and is super happy, and in his mind is living a big life. For me, that's the opposite. And like, now that I've experienced, I have an appreciation for it that I never had before. So I now can see that Tom is living a big life for Tom. For Andrea, not so much. I can appreciate it, I can do it, but there's so much more I want. So I have some other things to say, but I want to give other people time to talk.
I want to jump in on that, because just because you are having a routine doesn't mean that your life is boring, right? I wouldn't call it boring, because if you enjoy, he has a hobby, that's what he enjoys. That brings pleasure to him, right? And his pleasure doesn't have to be your pleasure. And I agree with you. So if it was routine where it was like, oh my God, I got to do this again. But if you have a chance to say, I get to do my hobby, I am excited. If you see somebody in the middle of doing their hobby, you actually see joy. You see an inner smile. They're not frowning. They're not miserable faced. They're happy. So yes, and that's not what I was talking about, by the way, when I said somebody lives a groundhog life. It's because they don't want to be in it, but they don't take action to get out of it. If you have a routine, and living on a 53-acre farm, I am sure there's nothing routine about it. You may have to do certain things, but every day is slightly different. Every day is a little bit, maybe this happened or that happened. You have to move around. And by the way, I will wait for my invitation.
Open door here. We have 2 guest rooms. You can come over anytime. Austin,
Great.
you've
I'll
met
bring my
Austin.
toddler.
Bring them. They'll have a lovely time. They get to go out and run and play. I love having guests and have guests all the time. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. Kevin, you look like you might want to share something.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking of a thread, that runs with these themes of big life and grief, probably some other themes too. But in this case, I'm thinking that in both big life and grief, there are no prescriptions. there are no absolute ways to do it. There's no absolute way to have a big life. There's no way, absolute or prescriptive way to encounter grief or to approach grief or to navigate through it. It's all very personal and very individual. And I'll use the prescriptive part again. There's not a pharmacist that can say this particular remedy is going to work for this many hundreds of people. I think the beauty of it all is that we can all pursue our own big life. And I have separate big lives within the relationships we have with our partners. And then when we experience those grief incidents, those situations, which I think come and go. My dad's been dead for 40 years, but I still get a tinge of grief every once in a while about it. So grief comes and goes, and there's no prescriptions. I just, and one more thing, I want to go way back to something that Sifu said when you were talking about not allowing your sparring partner to get into that space. I think that's true too. We can choose whether we're going to get hit or not. Sometimes we can choose ways to block that, or we can choose, in some cases, not to be injured. Ideally, we have that choice in most situations that we encounter, that there's the potential of injury, that we have a way to block it, or that we have a way to prevent it.
Very lovely.
Beautifully said, by the way, because every day when you step outside, somebody is going to try to hit you, whether with their words or with their car. Right? It depends where you are. But it's the reaction or the action we take when these things happen. So,
Yeah.
sure.
Another point I wanted to share is Lisa was talking about how her processes and how things work. And again, I love what she does, because people are going to resonate and love her and how she does things, and that works for them. And some people work with Kevin because they're like, oh, I know, I want how Kevin does it. I want to work with Sifu because how Sifu does it. And then for me, I always thought we had to go deep down, dark into everything, and that I had to. In fact, I did a program yesterday where I talked about where I felt like I had to suffer to learn. I remember going to church as a little kid and being taught that I had to suffer, and suffer unto the children, or however that quote goes. And I realized then later on in life that suffer meant growth and expansion. And now with some of the tools that I'm using and utilize within, like a neurolinguistic programming and hypnosis, is that I don't have to be in it. I don't ever have to even go into the pain, and then I can respond to grief and sadness and anger and just an amount of emotions that I don't have to be there. Although there has been times where I have the tools to not be there. And sometimes for some of them, I still needed to suffer to learn whatever decision I made mentally that I needed to be able to hurt or be in pain. I would keep that. And it's funny, funny, ironic, not funny, haha per se, although it can be funny, haha, is that the more I realize like, oh, I don't have to be doing this. Like I'll start to react to something and like, oh, wait, what if I didn't react at all? What if those were just words that somebody else said and I don't have to hear them or receive them? Because if they don't pertain to me, I wouldn't respond. So what if I just decide not to have those pertain to me? And it's made things so much easier. So as the Keep Smiling movement, I'm always referring people for our nonprofit to find what works for them, because what I teach may not work for you. It may be Lisa that you need, or Sifu, or Kevin, or someone that hasn't been mentioned on the show yet today. I want people just to find what resonates with how they want to heal and how they want to elevate or rise to a different level.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's room at the table for everyone in their own gifts and their own expertise. And there's no one way to get to where you want to go. There's a million right ways. And there might be some wrong ways, but I know that there's a lot of right ways to do that. And so it's about being at cause or being responsible for finding what works for you. And I think that that's something we can practice as human beings, is to find that resiliency of, okay, I know this doesn't work. Oh, this works. Oh, that doesn't work, but this works. And being relentless in the pursuit of, okay, in what's next for me, what's the support that I need? You might know already, or there might need to be some exploration of, NLP or hypnosis, by the way, which I love. I love hypnosis. It's so much fun. I have a friend of mine who runs a practice, very successful practice in Philadelphia. But I do think that there is no one way to do something. There's no one way to do life. There's no one habit that is right for everyone. And so getting out of that frame of mind is really, really important, and getting out of that frame of mind of, oh, this worked for me before, so it has to work now, or this worked for someone else, so it has to work for me now, is really important. Because once you put down that it has to go this way, you then have the availability to have an adventure, to explore, to experiment, which is a very different experience than pass fail in our minds.
It's very interesting what you're both talking about. It's because a lot of times people are not, and they grow up thinking that if they make a mistake, they failed. But I believe that mistakes are a path to success. And so when I teach little kids, like the other day, I said to a young boy, I said, you can't do that. You have to come over here. And he did that. And then when all the other kids came in and were in the group, and I said to him, I said, hey, guess what? You're not in trouble. You're not in trouble. It's okay. And then he kind of lit up a little bit. And I said, no, seriously, you guys, you understand that I love you all, but it's okay to make mistakes. Because guess what? Guess who makes the most mistakes every day? This guy. And they'll start laughing. I say, oh yeah, I make mistakes all the time. And so I'm always letting the young ones especially know that it's okay to make mistakes. Own your mistakes, of course. And if you have to apologize, but don't make an apology a routine, so that you can say, oh, if I apologize, I can do this. No, apologize only if it truly is a mistake, not intentional, right? So one of the other things I teach the kids is I tell them, make believe you have a rubber suit and you zip it all the way up. And so when you leave the house, if anybody says anything negative to you, any bad words, poof, they bounce off you. And guess what? You're good. And they're like, I can put that suit on? I said, yeah, I call it the black belt suit. They're like, wow. And I said, you all can put on a black belt suit, and it doesn't matter the age. So they're like, huh. So if I put on a rubber suit and if somebody says something nasty or not right or makes fun of me, it can bounce off me? Absolutely. So it's the little things that we can start to instill in the people who are hearing us and even listening to us that will make a difference.
I always joked that the little phrase or sing-songy thing that kids would say, like, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. I was the opposite. I'm like, I'd rather have you punch and kick me because that'll hurt less than your words. And I'm an N, by the way. That means I'm a nurturer. I'm people. So words, vocabulary, that is what I hang on to. And so constantly or consistently letting myself know that those words are not personal to me, they're just a vocabulary word, has been super helpful. So I love that you do your zip up black belt suit so everything bounces off. I love it. You're
So
in your own rubber room.
absolutely. Dr. Andrea, you just mentioned two things. Before you said, my husband's a blueprint and I'm an N. And some people listening may be going, what on earth is she talking about? I'm going to say the word, and it's called bank. And would you mind taking a quick second and explaining it. And that's what this book is all about, right? So
Yeah.
bank is a whole, oh my gosh, it will change. If you're a coach, if you work with people, this will change your life. Would you mind explaining?
Yeah, the founder of Bank, the code breaker technology, is Sherry Tree. It's spelled Cheri, so it looks like cherry tree, Sherry Tree. And she came up with this philosophy over years of learning about different styles of how people buy, because she was in sales and she wanted to be better at sales, and she was not good at sales. And after reading all these different things and taking all these different personality tests, and looking at everything, she realized it was always about self, but it was never really about understanding the other person. So she started looking at the whole idea of that, of looking at the other person and why they would buy something, or what would you have to say or do in order to meet them where they were at. And through that, she came up with this personality science and came up with an assessment called Bank. And Bank literally is the blueprint for how people's personalities reflect and show. And so each letter of Bank stands for a different way that people operate. And I just put my cards to the side here, so let me get them back out. So when we're talking about Bank and talking about personalities, let me start with Blueprint. So Blueprint is someone who likes rules. They like things in order. They like systems. They like everything to be such as, okay, you hold yours so I can read mine. So stability, structure, systems, planning, processes, predictability, duty, rules. My husband is a Blueprint. There's a rule for every.
There's a rule for everything: credentials, titles, tradition. And so she also talked about her being an N, that's nurturing. And nurturing is relationships, authenticity. You can go ahead.
Yeah, perfect.
You're going
Perfect.
into
I
N.
think you were still talking. I'm going to show real quick because I held up the action one. By the way, you can tell when the satellite moves because you can tell when I'm breaking out. We have them for children as well, so the children can look at them. I had my 5-year-old grandson and 8-year-old granddaughter do them like this, and then I read the words to them, and their bank code came out exactly the same. So bank is people who are action takers. My second one is action. So I take action. I do things. I get them done. We like lifestyle, stimulation, competition, winning, fun, image, excitement, those kinds of things. And then you are on nurturing. So nurturing is my top one. And that's where I dropped it. And that's where I care about people and how things are functioning and how relationships and growth and significance and teamwork, all of those things are super important to me. That's my top one. And then red is my second one. So everybody has all of them in them. We just have some of more and less of another. And then K is our knowledge people. Those are our researchers. Those are people who ask a lot of questions. They like research and development and accuracy and, expertise, science. And that allows us then to work with people differently. So Sifu and I have been practicing the bank code and using those assessments within our own businesses. So me as a neuroscience and publicist, and Sifu in his martial arts business and his consulting business. So it's allowing us to understand. So even with you, Kevin and Lisa, we're trying to, by observing you and hearing what you say, read your code so that we can connect with you and build a better rapport and help draw you into the conversation based on how you might like to be talked to. So that's what we're doing. And so it's called Bank, and it's a code technology. And Sifu was talking about how you can take your code. So there's a way. Marianne Pageant's watching. She's a ANKB. And so that means she takes action, she cares about people, and she asks a lot of questions, and then she'll put things in order, but only if she has to. And so it allows us to play together better. Yeah.
It's very interesting when you talked about knowledge. Lisa was listening, and you said knowledge. She's like, damn, It's me. I loved it. I loved your reaction, Lisa.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Nailed it. I would say that I'm a nurturer knowledge combination. I know that about myself, that I love relationships. I love being with people. I love the one-on-one conversation. I love deep, rich partnership and friendship. And then the knowledge, absolutely. Because I get nerdy about the work that I do. I like to ask a lot of questions and be curious. So yeah, that's
So
a great assessment.
One other really cool thing about this
Right.
is it also lets people know where they go into stress. So, so I'll hold my colors up in order. So I'm a nurturer, then I'm action, and then I'm knowledge, and then I'm blueprint. However, these two are really close for me. So when I am stressed, I kind of tend to go into the third one more. So because these are so close, so I start. I research like crazy. So my research is kind of independently, and then all this research I have to do is then supported by putting everything in order. So I am a person who likes nothing in order per se. And then all of a sudden, everything has to have an order. All of a sudden, I have to do whatever. And as a publicist, I spend my time, hi, blah, 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 talkie, media, taking action. But the second that I'm behind the scenes, I have to do these two, which is really funny because on one hand, I almost hate doing these, but I'm really, really good at them. And then when they're done, I feel rewarded, but I really, really like this life the best. So these are when I'm under pressure, and these are when I just get to live my life super happy. And of course, opposites attract. Yay. I love how we always do this, like they're Barbie dolls, like we make them touch.
You know, one of the things, if anybody actually wants to get a detailed report as to their code, we have it on the screen right now. It's bit.ly seafood code, right? / seafood code. Go there, you get a free report. And guess what? It's amazing. And you can also recommend other people to go, and you can ask them, hey, what's your code? What's my code? So you can actually start to share. Like Marianne, she came in and she goes, ANKB for me. So yeah, it's pretty interesting when we can learn to speak to one another in a nurturing way. Because I'm an action nurturer type of, those are my first two. Right? I'm an action guy. What can I say?
So it's been super, super fun. And if you guys know large organizations or businesses who would be interested in having Sherry come and speak, then you can reach out to me. And so I've been assisting her with a little bit of love with some publicity so that Bank could be seen by the world at a bigger level. So if you are looking for a speaker for a large organization or a training, reach out to me and we can create some other fun things for all of you. So yeah, so we are living a big life here.
Yeah. And by the way, we're both speakers as well. Dr.
Oh,
Andre is a great speaker, and I'm okay.
Oh, Sifu is full of shit. Okay. He's like the best speaker. I'm going to call you on that. I'm going to cut on that one. All right. So I was this last weekend or a week ago, he was a speaker at an event that I was the coordinator and the publicist for. I was also the co-host and the photographer. I ended up being all things.
Everything.
And the only person that I sat down, no, there was two of you that I sat down and forgot to take pictures because I was listening so hard were you and Dr. Oliver T. Reed. You two, and then in fact, I was like, I need to stop listening because I need to go work. Because when I'm working, I can't listen to the speaker. People always think that when you're the photographer, they're like, oh, you heard it all. I'm like, yeah, I heard nothing because my eyes going, where's my angle? Where's my light? Where's my people? I have a whole voice going on in my head. But Sifu's story, I only got to hear a portion of it. And he just had me gripped in so tight that I had to literally force myself away. So you're a very good speaker. Very good. So yeah, lots of cool things in the world. So Lisa and Kevin, how can we know more about both of you? We'll start with Kevin.
Sure. Yeah, I equate what you're doing with the bank to like Myers-Briggs and those kind of assessments. Mm-hmm. So just knowing, and I used to use when I was a school principal, we did a lot of Myers-Briggs things with our staff. And it was amazing to me as a educational leader at the time, how we could work with the staff together and put people in, not put, or just place people. People assume different roles on committees and stuff based on those styles that we had and where they fit in the quadrants. So I've always been fascinated by that, and I want to look into this the bank thing a little bit more too.
That's lovely.
So, and I'll just show. We've been showing copies of books. This is a copy of my book, 2 Floors Above Grief. I think I have. I know Sifu's on my newsletter list. I don't have Andrea and Lisa on my newsletter list, but I get a newsletter out once a week. One just came out this week, just to update people about what I'm doing with the book. I'm heading on a book tour the 30th, getting some speaking engagements with some people that in this near where the setting of the book is, which is outside Chicago in a town called Elgin, Illinois. So I'll be doing that. And then for Instagram, I can be reached at The Grief Navigator. And I've been doing some more work there with a great digital person named Sanders Jennings. He's a 20-something whiz with social media. So I've been enjoying my time with him and working to learn from him and to get myself more out in the world there. So that's what I'm doing currently.
Nice. Hey, Kevin, I just want to ask you a question. Do you remember the Nokia phone?
The Nokia phone?
Yeah.
I never had one, but I'm aware of what the Nokia phone was. Yeah.
Remember those old phones that they
yeah.
worked, but they're obsolete now?
They were the rage at one particular time.
Now the rage is what? The best phone, iPhone. And that's what Bank is. You remember you mentioned other things. So, the Myers-Briggs and all these, all these different things. Not to put them down, but we are Bank, not me personally, but Sherry, she is the iPhone.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Those things that evolve with personality things. Yeah.
Lisa, how can we find you? And how? Yes. And by the way, Lisa's going to be on my show next week. What?
Get ready! It's party time.
We're doing coaching.
Yes, I can't wait. So I can be found at my website, coachingwithlp.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn, Lisa Pachence. I also have a newsletter, and you can always send me an email, lisa.pachence@accomplishmentcoaching.com. I am obsessed with the ability to raise the level of transformation and coaching in the industry. I work with a lot of coaches. I work with a lot of entrepreneurs who have a coach approach to their work. And per Bank, I am definitely a combination of knowledge and nurture, because I really do adore the work that I get to do. And I can't wait to have another conversation with you next week, Sifu.
Looking forward to it. By the way, I want to let everybody know that this show normally is 45 minutes, and now we're at 57 minutes, going on 58. So I want to thank you both for being here and allowing us to even share a little bit about Bank, and definitely letting us know how you're living your big life, because life is short. Make it big. Make it big, people.
Amen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a great day. Thank you so very much. Bye, everyone.
Enjoy.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks. Glad I was here. Glad you were here with me. Thanks a lot.
Bye.